what I want to get into because you know, um, you know, like at the end of the day, this whole journey is about us helping people discover the healing capabilities within themselves.
Mhm. Yes.
And quite often, what I find in my personal experience is that I'm just a guide along that journey. Now, I will sometimes use the label as a healer, but honestly, I'm a guide in the process.
Of course.
And I learned that by owning a farm. One day I was out there farming and just digging up the ground. And where I'm at is so much coral that when you have to dig a hole to plant something, I mean, like you're literally chopping through what looks like rock. And as I was putting this black tie banana plant into the ground, I was thinking to myself, like, damn, I'm planting this, I'm gonna get bananas from this. It was this whole me process. And then one day I came back out maybe 2 weeks later and had grew to like double the size. And I was thinking to myself, I didn't do that. I didn't do that at all. Like I got it. I got it the plant into the ground and the sun and the earth and the divine divinity of the world essentially helped that come to be. And so what I want to start off with is what does healing look like for you?
Mhm.
Like not only for your personal journey, but what does it look like when you're helping people, navigate the space of how do they get back to being their divine selves?
Right, right. Well, that's a great question. So, first, I would say when I deal with people, I always tell them that you are the healing factor. As
Mm.
you just mentioned, the whole guide element, because most often than not, the problem that people are having with healing is they've lost faith in themselves.
Yep.
They don't know they have options. They lost their way. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So all you're doing is you're providing resources, you're giving them inspiration, you're really dealing with their psychology. Because you can give them $1,000 worth of stuff,
Yep.
but if they don't have an understanding of what they can accomplish for themselves, then you're just gonna have very expensive urine.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have that Gucci urine in the toilet. So secondly, it's a great story you just shared in regards to farming. I would say you did have a lot to do with that because you set the intention.
Yes.
So, when we think about healing, we always think about ourselves and our body, but the environment is our body too. So we have to think about the environment that we're in.
Yeah.
So you planted something, right? You, individual intent in the ground,
Yeah.
but then now you have the elements of nature that worked with you, and together y'all were able to create something that you visioned in your mind.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I see happen every day I'm on the farm. It's like I guess what happens is you realize how insignificant you are in the process. The- And
Get
the
humbled,
example I
right?
give you is like breathing, right?
Hmm.
We say we breathe, but you don't think about breathing. It's a happening. It's not a doing. It's the same thing about, the blood that is coursing through your veins. You don't do that. It's a happening. It just happens. And so what I discovered is that along the healing journey, you got to get out of the doing and get to the happening.
Yes.
And the happening is you becoming what you were divinely supposed to
Created
be
to
in the
be.
first place.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that's what I mean by like putting the plant in the ground. It's planting the seed, which is the intention.
Hmm.
But I think what the beautiful part is that, it's like an onion. When you peel back enough layers, you get to what is called a nothingness.
Right.
But in that nothingness is everything. And
Yes.
that's what I find so beautiful about natural healing.
Mm.
And so let's get into
I
this.
agree. I agree.
You know, I find that natural healers have a very unique perspective on health and disease.
Hmm.
Me coming from, a totally different side of, natural healing, coming from essentially modern medicine
Right.
to jumping off of that grass onto the natural space of natural healing,
Mm.
it really shifted my whole perspective.
Yes.
And I think what happened was it began with me having that healing experience for myself.
Of course.
And because I had dis-ease in my body. And so, the beautiful part about natural healers is that we get to see and hear the failures of modern medicine. from a very unique and very honest perspective, almost like a childlike honesty.
Yeah.
You know, the things that I would never get a patient to tell me in the hospital,
Hmm.
that when you come on to the natural side of medicine, they're like brutally honest about. I
Tell you
mean,
too much.
I'll be out at events and people will literally pull down half their pants and show me a
It's,
rash.
I get some pictures sometime, be like, whoa, okay,
Yeah, so
got you.
we get to see the uninsured, the underinsured, the non-compliant, the underserved, you know, the generationally cursed.
Mm.
You know, the doctor sent me home because he said that there was nothing else he could do for me. So, what would you say is the biggest difference from your perspective
Mhm.
between natural medicine and then modern medicine?
Well, of course, there's gonna always be God and man. You know, we was coming up in school, in literature. You know, we learned about man versus nature, man
Yeah.
versus man, and everything like that. So we're dealing with once again, we're dealing with a divine situation where you have an environment, you have nature, you have 1,000-year-old practices, tried and true,
Indeed.
right? Things that are passed down.
Yeah.
Um, your grandmother, with her home remedies, like you said, the farm, you have all of that.
Yeah.
And then you have people that study that and then say, okay, I want to make a plastic husk of it because I know I can't patent that
Right.
because it's wild and there's no patent in the wild. But I can patent this though. So let me see if I can take the plastic husk version of that and patent it so it could be marketed and sold. So I would think the main difference would be that one is marketed as a product to be sold, right? And another one is actually something that exists for the reason of preventative as well as to assist whenever you lost your way.
Right.
Though that's where that the paths deviate from one another.
Right.
In addition to that, then it being just a product sold, then of course you have the aspect of ill intent with a lot of individuals too. Where it's like, I can, excuse me, I can get you to sign up on dealing with this product for an extended period of time,
Indeed.
right? As
Lifelong customer.
right, as opposed to just taking care of the problem. We see that with mechanics, there's some shady mechanics. Take the car up in there, it's a real simple problem. You don't know the car. They look under the hood, they like, oh, you need a flux capacitor.
Yeah.
You're like, man, I seen Back to the Future, bro. Ain't no flux capacitor in my car. You know what I mean? And then they have you paying all this money for the next 3 to 6 months or something like that, when it was just something real simple. Like you might have just needed some fluids up in the car, just like
Yeah.
you might have just needed some fluids in your body, some coconut water, some hydration, and you on your way.
Yeah.
So I think that's where they separate is just the intent behind it. One has a more pure aligned intent with who you are because you're dealing with the creator, an energy that loves you, that perpetuates you and is rooting for you, and then you're dealing with somebody else who's just not.
Yeah. And what I always compare people because, I was a chemistry major and of course I became a pharmacist. So I have this unique understanding of like chemistry. And I just honestly I fell in love with chemistry because I had a family member who was addicted to crack.
Ooh,
And I saw him take a powder form of something and crystallize it into a rock.
rock, right?
And for me, that was like,
Like,
damn,
do that,
how did
right?
you change the form of
Powder
something
to
like
a
that?
crystal.
Yeah. And so that was my first intriguement with
Mm,
chemistry.
that's wild.
And so coming from the pharmaceutical side of things and then going to the natural medicine side of things, I was trying to figure out, well, what's the difference? Because, we were actually taught in school that, most medications at the beginning of this pharmaceutical industry boom, 50% of them had a plant-based derivative.
That's right.
And so the vast majority of drugs were created based on plants, the
Hmm.
active ingredients in plants that actually heal people.
That's right.
And so my thing was, why don't we just use the plant? Because even when you think about vitamin C, what they're using is just ascorbic acid, and the ascorbic acid is like just the packaging on vitamin C. It's not actually this complex of a multitude of things that are actually in the vitamin C.
Mhm.
And so, like, the question I always tell people, or the statement I always make to people, is that modern medicine is there to manipulate our biochemistry,
Mhm.
and it does a really good job of that.
That's right.
And so, if you take a high blood pressure medication, it'll lower your blood pressure, but it doesn't mean that it's corrected the root issue.
Mhm.
Whereas when you're looking at natural medicine, it's a correction of your biochemistry.
Right.
So it's correcting your biochemistry back to its default state.
Exactly.
And I think that's what people don't get about natural medicine is that, the idea, if you truly want to heal, you have to correct your biochemistry
Mhm.
because you weren't born with hypertension. You weren't born with diabetes.
No.
And so it's important to know that there's been a misalignment